Hi nurses, welcome to Shift Change, the podcast for nurses who are ready to shift their thinking away from the just a nurse mentality and into claiming their position as powerful agents for change. I'm your host, Amy Deagle, Chief Nursing Officer and President of the International Network of Nurse Leaders. Our mission at the International Network of Nurse Leaders is to amplify the voice of nurses, inspire the new generation of nurse leaders, and lead a change revolution in the nursing profession. Everything we do is because we believe in the power of nurses to change the world. So let's get started. Hi nurses. First off, I want to thank all of you who have filled in the survey for giving us your feedback on what you want to see from the professional associations. I really appreciate you taking the time to do so. And if you've been on the fence about doing it, we're going to be closing the doors soon for responses. So if you could go to NurseLeaders.ca/survey to fill it in, you're going to help us improve your professional associations. Today on the podcast, I'm really pleased to be joined by Kelly Hallock. Kelly and I met through the Association of Regulated Nurses of Manitoba, and I knew I wanted to have her on the podcast because she is a registered nurse educator with the Intern Lake Eastern Regional Health Authority. She has a Bachelor of Science in Nursing from the University of Alberta and is also an experienced speaker working in the professional training and speaking industry. She is skilled in nursing education, acute care, critical care nursing, and healthcare management. Kelly is also a certified speaker, trainer, and coach with the John Maxwell team. I'm excited for you to hear our conversation on how nurses can use their influence with intentional purpose. So Kelly, welcome to the Shift Change podcast. I am so excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy. I'm so excited to be here.
So Kelly, I know that we've had some conversations before we started recording this podcast. You and I are connected with some work we're doing with the Association of Registered Nurses of Manitoba, but I would love to have our listeners know a little bit more about you, your nursing career, and also your journey into leadership, because you have a unique affiliation that I would love for you to talk about as well. So can you walk us through your nursing career and leadership journey thus far?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So I actually, I'm in Manitoba now, but I consider myself an import because I actually graduated from the University of Alberta. I finished my schooling in the end of 2006 and convocated in 2007. So in my final practicum, I was at the Cross Cancer Institute, and then I met my husband that same year, my last year of nursing school. And when I finished schooling in December of 2006, I actually packed up my tiny little car and moved down to Medicine Hat, and I started my nursing career down in Medicine Hat. So that was kind of a neat little journey to start my career. And so I started actually I thought I was going to be in cancer care, or what we call cancer care here in Manitoba, but oncology nursing, and I had such a great experience in oncology nursing, but there was an outpatient oncology unit there, so I was casual there. But really where my kind of journey started was I walked up to the medicine unit in Medicine Hat in the regional hospital there, and I handed my resume to the manager, and there was really no permanent jobs at the time, but he said, you know what, I think that you would be great for a mentorship program in the intensive care unit. And I kind of was like, oh,
wow.
Okay. I was like, here we go. So I walked over and buzzed in and met the manager at the time, and she said, yeah, we have this really great mentorship program. You'd be following with a senior nurse. It would be, you'd have a 0.7, a fairly good EFT, but you'd be following with your senior nurse at the time. And so off I went into this mentorship into intensive care, and really had never seen a ventilator, a cardiac monitor, or anything before that. And so my journey began in ICU, and actually it really started my spark of love for critical care nursing. But I was lucky enough to be able to still work in oncology at the time. So I worked oncology outpatient and also inpatient ICU. So that's kind of where it started. And I was there in Medicine Hat for probably just about a full 3 years when we actually moved my husband got a job here in Manitoba, and so we moved back to Manitoba. And I was pregnant with my daughter, and we moved when I was 34 weeks pregnant, and drove it again in my little car across Saskatchewan. And and yeah, and so I probably about 3 weeks after we moved, I had my daughter, and so I was on maternity leave. And I thought to myself, well, what better time to start in a new province? What better time to start getting education, more education about ICU at the time? And so I applied to their critical care nursing program, and I got in. And so Katie, my daughter, was 7 months old at the time, and so I did they call it WICNEP, or the Winnipeg Critical Care Nursing Education Program. I started that in April of 2011, and did that until October when I graduated, and actually was nominated a valedictorian, which was very kind of cool. My peers were awesome, and I started ICU in Manitoba, and so I had the opportunity to work in all the different ICUs, medical, surgical, and then I went over to the cardiac intensive care, like cardiac surgery intensive care unit for a while, and so that was about just about a 2-3 year journey there, and then I got pregnant with my son, and my husband is a firefighter, so we did shift work, and I was actually going into a full-time nights rotation. It was 8-hour shifts, so there was a lot of sleepovers for my in-laws, and so I thought, you know what, this is maybe a good time to transition into days of some sort. And I always knew that I wanted to get into some sort of education, adding value to nurses, just helping be a resource for nursing, whether that was at the university or whether that was staff education. And I remember my educators in the ICU and how much I admired how much they knew, and how hands-on they were. And so I applied for, there was an educator job in one of the medicine units. And so I thought, you know what, I'll just apply for it. I'll go for it. Went for the interview. I was 7 months pregnant, and the director at the time said, we'd love to have you. And I was just floored that I was given the opportunity. And so that then just transitioned me into the nurse educator role. And so I was in the medicine program where I worked with such a fantastic team of educators that were very innovative. I had an amazing director who just let us fly, let us try things. We started simulation. We took on simulation training for our nurses to be able to just feel comfortable in a safe environment. And so it was a really, really great opportunity. So I did that for about 3 years in medicine. And then I thought, I kind of missed bedside a little bit. So there was an opportunity, again, another opportunity for me to explore being with patients, but in transplant. And there was a new kind of newer developed role for a liver and lung transplant coordinator. And so I thought this would be a really great opportunity, because I realized how much I loved creating things, and, not only for nurses, but for patients, and to make the healthcare just so much better, and just to be able to positively impact the patient experience. And so that was this opportunity, was the transplant program for me. So I worked again with some amazing physicians, and I got to learn so much about various, like the lab and different specialties, kidneys, and there's, livers, there's lungs, there's a whole bunch of different specialties out there. And I got to actually work with different provinces networking on a national scale, because of how we had to network with the programs, because we don't necessarily do all of the transplantations here, but we sometimes have to send our patients outwards. So I had a really great opportunity to work alongside some fantastic people in that program. I also got to be a part of the multi-organ donor program, which again, I got to work with some really amazing physicians and nurses, and that got me back into the ICU a little bit. But there was lots of call with that. And so after about 2 years of that, I really started to figure out that the piece that was missing for me was adding the value to the nurses, and being in that leadership role, the educators. So so I left that role after about 2 years, but I had the opportunity to actually go back to being a nurse educator for ophthalmology, which again, I learned a lot about another specialty. But I had the opportunity to work again alongside some amazing leaders in healthcare in that environment. And then we had moved out in during that transition time from, about 2015. We had actually moved from Winnipeg out into rural Manitoba, and the travel was getting quite a bit of time away from my family. And so one of the nurses out here tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, there's potentially an opportunity coming up as an educator in the region that you're in." And so I said, "Oh, okay, well that's interesting." And sure enough, the opportunity came, and I thought, you know what, it's a regional role. I get to be in the rural areas now, which I had never been in. I've always been an urban center nurse, I guess you could call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that opportunity came, and so now I get to work. I work actually in rural Manitoba as a nurse educator back in critical care, actually, for the emergency program and for the acute care, so rural emerge and rural acute care. So I get to work again I have such an amazing colleague, and I get to meet so many fantastic nurses around our region that are doing some amazing things. So that's a little bit about my nursing journey. But in that time, like I said, I started to discover it's my calling. I would say it's my calling for leadership. And when I was transitioning between when I was in my transplant role, because I was one of the lone coordinators at the time, you had to lead things, right? So I had to start projects and had to, talk to people and be the lead on a lot of things because it was a new role, and, get people together and collaborate and do all these things. I discovered how much I love that. And I discovered that one of the things that I would love to learn more about is leadership. So January of 2017, I decided to explore leadership in a more formal role, and I actually got certified to be a leadership trainer, like speaker trainer and coach with the John Maxwell team. And so from there, it just kind of sparked this passion of mine of nursing plus developing others. And I realized how much I just have such a passion for building people. And so that combined now with my passion for nursing and education and building people in the leadership role has really I got to combine my passion for leadership and the role that I'm in currently as an educator. And so I've just been kind of working my way through it as to how to positively impact the healthcare environment, because it's so complex and there's so many things happening in it. But the one thing that I've discovered is leadership development. I've noticed, that as an educator, we're in an informal leadership role, but how much leadership development and how much leadership matters in our environment. And so that after getting my certification and after about 3 years of developing myself, my dad and I have actually started our own company. We just started it. We just have a name. It's Avante Leadership Consulting, but we're really excited because he worked government for over 35 years, and I've been in healthcare, and there's so many similarities of how leaders need to be equipped too, and so that really sparked our passion and our journey now to continue to develop others, the leaders of today for tomorrow. So that's in a nutshell, I guess, the last, 14 or so years of my life.
That has been quite the journey. Thank you for sharing that, Kelly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to touch base quickly on a couple things you mentioned. So with the educator role, I know that some nurses have a vague idea of what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. But for anybody out there listening that might be interested in that educator role, could you just give a little bit of an overview of what does day-to-day look like there? And how would you advise somebody who's maybe interested in shifting their career towards that direction get into it?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I love that you asked that, because I think a lot of people, like you said, don't really maybe understand it, and maybe have had varying degrees of experience with a nurse educator. But my view and the way I've always looked looked at the nurse educator role is we're really there to enhance the practice and to help nurses feel more confident and competent in their skills or their knowledge. And that's really what the role is about, is to be that resource, because we know that nurses are resourceful, like not resourceful, but they're full of resources. They information, right? And we're not just teachers. Like, you nurses have that knowledge already. We're there to help if there's a gap in knowledge, or maybe there's a trend in something happening. We do a lot of evidence-based research. We're always looking for the best practice skills, and we really impact practice that way to make sure things are policies or any kind of practice areas that might need, maybe someone's just, hasn't been up to date on certain things. So day to day for us really is connecting with the staff, and I feel like we're the middle between, we're not management because we don't have anybody reporting to us. We don't necessarily performance manage, but we're there to help support their performance, almost, I guess you could say. And it's really, I feel like the educator role really is a leadership role in this sense, because we are influential and we do impact people on a daily basis. We have conversations, if someone says, if I just got an email the other day, hey, do you have any more information about, peritoneal dialysis? We feel like we need more education on that. Okay, so then they reach out, we go find the resource. If we're not the expert in it, I go find the resource, I reach out to whoever's in the region, kind of connect with that, put together whether it's a learning package, or maybe it's connecting with the manager at the site or the unit, and then we make sure that they have that information so that they can do their job. And really, we're always trying to find innovative ways to engage our staff in ongoing learning. So we're really there to support the ongoing learning, because they have the knowledge. Like I said, they've come with that knowledge. Maybe they're new to the area, but we're often there as a mentor, to guide them through maybe something new. But it's really there to support and influence their practice in a good way. I always think that we often hear about they tell us all the things that are happening, and they're struggling with something, or maybe they have to work through a conversation, or maybe they have to work through maybe a situation that happened. But we're there to kind of help steer them or navigate those areas too. So I really find that we're in a very supportive role, and we can help increase their confidence and competence in their area that they're in.
Amazing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And for somebody looking to get into that role, what would you recommend they start doing in their career now?
I would definitely say growth. Keep learning new things. If you love making sure that you have the best practice, the best knowledge that's out there, get on committees where you can be next to those educators, or you can when you're on a committee, bring that evidence with you. Keep learning. We do have to do sessions, so maybe practice doing teaching in some way, or find various modes of teaching that if you're a coach in your own community, but getting skilled at navigating classroom situations and courses, that kind of stuff. But there's lots of different things that you could get into. You could do adult learning certificates. You could look to do project management, anything that's going to help you learn how to find the evidence and then translate that to knowledge for the staff. But definitely talk to your educator if you have one on your unit, and ask them how they navigated through that. I was lucky enough because I was in ICU, so I had a lot of knowledge that I could share with others. But I was able to tap into that and share that expertise with the staff that were involved. But yeah, I would say just be brave and apply for those jobs. Just apply for them. And go for the interviews. I always say any interview that you can get in front of, it's a different type of interview. You're going to have to probably teach something, find something that you're good at, or practice in front of a classroom, or practice in front of the mirror, practice talking to your dog, whatever it is to get those speaking skills. Those are always public speaking skills. But definitely go for those interviews. Go for the interview for sure. I would say that.
I love that piece of advice. I tell people that all the time too. Just
Mm.
there's a learning you can take from it. And then, even if it's a job you're not sure you're 100% sold on, when doing that interview and learning from it and growing from it, then when it is a job that you are, desperately wanting, then you already have kind of that skill set that you've acquired by doing other ones. So I love that. Hey nurses, I just wanted to take a quick break from the podcast and tell you about something really important that's happening. So 2020 has been designated as Year of the Nurse and the Midwife. And it's really great to be celebrating nurses and to be sharing trending hashtags. But what we really need to do is get into action, because it's up to us. And nothing is going to change if we don't make the change. So there's a movement happening and it needs you. We're stronger together. So come join us as we disrupt the status quo and evolve our profession. It's time. We are stronger together, so let's get started. If you want to know how you can join this movement of change, visit NurseLeaders.ca/2020nurse to opt in for a free 3-part video series about how we can use 2020, the Year of the Nurse and Midwife, as the year we finally use our collective voice and lead our profession forward. So jump over to NurseLeaders.ca/2020nurse for all the details. Now back to the episode. So Kelly,
sure.
What does it look like when somebody steps into their leadership potential? You mentioned that with your leadership training through the John Maxwell team, that, part of your calling is really helping people unlock their true leadership potential. So what does that look like when somebody actually steps into that?
Well, I think it's really exciting when someone starts to see themselves as a positive influence, because, well, like John Maxwell says, the one quote that he says, and you probably can see this before, is that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And I honestly believe that that everyone has a potential to be a leader, right? We all influence somebody in some way or another. We just might not recognize it yet. I think that when you think about leadership, it's truly, impacting someone else's life. And it's in a way that inspires someone to do more, to reach farther, to maybe go for that job interview, or, step out and try something new. I think that I have in my own career or my own life, I've underestimated the fact that I was a leader in certain situations. Somebody is always watching us, right? We don't know who it is, but somebody's watching us. And that could be somebody in our career, that could be somebody in our community, that could be somebody in our family. But I think that someone always is watching us, so that we have the opportunity to positively influence. And I think that when we start to get our mind wrapped around that we can actually use our influence on purpose, I think that's when you start to see that mindset shift, and people starting to go, I can influence this person, and that you start to see that kind of ripple effect and that light. It's almost like, I don't even know, it's like, it's so exciting to see someone go, I can do that, or I did do that, oh my gosh, and it's almost like this light inside of them just lights up, and just helping them as like myself or yourself is when, and I'm sure you've seen it, you're like, oh, there's that switch, that's that mindset switch going, I can do this and I am influential. But it's just making that shift to see it. So
I love that.
So that's what I think anyway.
Amazing. And, as somebody who is interested in leadership as I am really excited to know what your go-to resources are that help support you on your leadership journey. So books, podcasts, courses, conferences, any of that stuff. I would love to know what fills up your resource, your leadership resource library.
Yeah, it's full, and it's a variety, I would say. I think the biggest book, the book that I started with was the Becoming a Person of Influence book by John Maxwell. That to me was my start of my journey. I was like, okay, I knew I had this calling. I knew that I was a nurse for a reason. I just had to get back to my why, right? And so when I started to really unpack that Becoming a Person of Influence, it was really like breaking down how I could become a person of influence and what it meant for me. And so that one was my go-to. And I talk about that all the time because I think that's a really good place to start, because when I started with the John Maxwell team, the biggest thing is you have to lead yourself first, and the only person you can change is yourself. So I had to learn how to lead myself, and I had to learn who I was and what that meant for me and who my people that I influence are, because you and I aren't just nurses. We have other things that we're exploring. Like, I'm a soccer coach. I was a soccer referee. I'm a mom. I have other community groups. I was on the daycare board. Like, there were so many different aspects to who I was that I had to figure out who my circle of influence was. So, and what that meant for me. So that was the first one. 5 Levels of Leadership is also a good one by John Maxwell. That's another book. One that I started reading was called Transformational Leadership in Nursing, the second edition. It's kind of a bigger textbook, I guess you could say. But that has some really golden nuggets, and I haven't got through the whole thing yet, but I do take out some nuggets from there. Kouzes and Posner they're authors. They wrote the Leadership Challenge.
Yep, that's one of my favorites.
Yeah. The Truth About Leadership, and then Credibility. Those 3, like, my dad sent those to me, like those books, and I've been kind of reading through those. Another one, I'm always looking up academic journals. So anything I do nursing mostly, but I think it's because I'm trying to figure out, how to empower others, and nurses are influential and nurses are leaders. And so it's like, how can I help them unlock their potential? So any academic journals, I don't have anyone in particular. I just kind of pull articles off as I read them. And then I just went through a study last year called Think and Grow Rich. And that one was more about like a mindset. That to me was really interesting. So that was one that I kind of been on and off reading. Like, I read the whole book and did a study with the Empowered Living. They're a mentoring group. And then, so those are the books. Podcasts, again, I have like a whole bunch of different ones for different purposes, right? So I obviously listen to you, Amy, because I love the shift change. You're on my podcast list. The John Maxwell Executive Leadership podcast I listen to. They have 2. There's also a John Maxwell Company one, which is also very good. Jay Shetty, actually, he has his purpose one. I listen to him. I just listened to him this morning on the way to work. Tony Robbins I have on there. Then I also have, for working, like, because I'm in rural and I'm in Emerge, I have this one called EM Cases. So that's more for, like, they talk about patient situations and how, like, there's a bunch of doctors that talk about it and how they worked through getting to the differential diagnosis. So that's more like work-wise. And then I have a financial one that I listen to, which is Dave Ramsey. Some personal growth ones are like the Gold Digger podcast. But I also have like mentorship calls that I go on. I'm a part of a couple different mentorship groups, just to kind of keep myself, getting some good leadership advice. And then I'm always like, I'm a big fan of finding someone who is doing what you want to do, and being a part of your local organization. So I'm, the CNA, the Canadian Nurses Association, NINA, which is our Emergency Nurses Association. I just became a member of the Canadian College of Health Leaders, because they have leads, and I'm always trying to figure out what's the framework. What are the leaders of healthcare doing? Because, if I'm in this healthcare world and I want to be a leader, what is it that I need to learn? What is it I need to grow? And so, and of course, my local association, the Association of Registered Nurses in Manitoba, is also something that I'm always regularly checking out. But, I think that when you think about webinars, I'm always saying, like, sign up for free webinars, sign up for, courses that inspire you, whether it's for your own practice. Like, if I need to know more about pediatrics, then I'm going to go do that for my practice. But, I'm always looking for leadership leadership courses. There's here in Manitoba, we have QNet. So I'm always looking to see if there's something that interests me. If there's free stuff, if there's stuff that I pay for, is there something that I want to spend my money on, like my education money on, or my own money on? But I just always think, where am I at? What do I need to know in order to grow? And I think that's why I have you'll see that's why I have a variety of different things that I go to, because where am I at now? Do I need to know something for business wise? Do I need to know something for nursing? Do I need to know something for my job? But I'd always just say, like, just go for it. If it's non-nursing, then go for it too. Whatever sets your soul on fire is really what I love, And so yeah, that's a little bit about where I go for my resources. I have more,
that is
but
quite the list. I knew it was going to be a good
yeah.
one, so thank you for sharing that.
Sorry.
No, it's
Yeah.
great. So, Kelly, as you know, 2020 has been designated the year of the nurse and the midwife. What changes would you like to see the nursing profession make this year?
Oh, that's a really big question. And when I was thinking about that question, I thought, what is it? I think that I would love to see nurses feel their voices being heard in on a global scale. I think that what that comes down to, though, is, we are all equipped. Nurses have the knowledge, are skilled, they're trained everywhere in their specialty, and we can see the things that need to be done. It's just maybe there's a leadership development kind of gap almost, right? So, because the best leaders are listeners, right? To be a good leader is to be a good listener. And I think that on a global scale, there's so many changes that, we can't always stop things from happening. But I think that if leaders, or if the leadership of all healthcare systems, of all organizations, healthcare and not, if they start to look at those bedside nurses and those nurses on the ground level, boots on the ground type thing, and the nurses are saying, hey, I'm really concerned about, or I have an idea about how we can fix this, that just even exploring some of those innovative, creative ways, I think that my dream would be for us to see more of that nursing voice at the table, at those decision-making tables, because I think there's some really, like, nurses are fantastic. There's some really great ideas out there, even at the unit level, at the bedside level. That's what I would love to see. But with that, I think that we need to respark our passion for the profession. It makes me really sad when I hear nurses leaving the profession totally, or leaving healthcare totally, because of maybe the circumstance, or maybe the environment that they're in, and I feel like, was there a missed opportunity to explore what they know, or explore some of their ideas? Was there a missed opportunity there? And it's not saying that the leaders are doing anything wrong. It's just maybe they're not equipped, right? So I think at all levels, we need to have more of that leadership development at all levels, right? To say, how can we keep developing the leaders of today for tomorrow's problems, and for the tomorrow's issues. And so I think that nurses need to be recognized as leaders, and nurses need to feel that, because they are, find their voice, and really I would love to see more opportunities, leadership opportunities, whether that's development, or courses, or just being involved in some of those bigger decisions, like just even being able to see how it's done. I would love to see us respark our passion, to say, hey, you know what, your voice matters, we hear you. That's what I would love to see, I think, for 2020.
Amazing. So, Kelly, you know that the International Network of Nurse Leaders hosted Not Just a Nurse Day, because you let me know that you're one of the attendees that watched some of our presentations. And so I'm just really interested to know, what do you think of that just a nurse mentality? And just, I'm putting in air quotes, even though nobody can see me. Why is it so prevalent, and how do we stop it?
Yeah, I love that you talked about that day, because something I once heard was, when you put the just in front of something. I think I was writing an email to someone, and I was reading it to somebody, and they said, the minute you put just in front of whatever you're about to say, it almost like diminishes or devalues what the next sentence you're about to say. So even if you're like, I'm just following up, it's like, you're almost like, well, I'm not really sure, right? So it's like, no, take that stand and say, I'm following up, or I am a nurse, because we have the knowledge. We know what we're doing. We're valuable, we're intelligent, we're critical thinkers, we're problem solvers. So I think our culture needs to shift that, and we are also very, like, nurses are servants, right? Like a servant leadership, and they get into that role because they want to help people. And it's not saying they're servants in the sense of like they're, the typical thought of servant, but we're serving others. And the whole reason why a lot of us get into nursing is because we want to help. We want to, we want to save someone, or we want to help someone through whatever difficult time that is, whatever area of nursing it is. We're there to help serve others and help them where they are. And so I think we're hard on ourselves because we're also not very good at promoting ourselves, right? We're not really good at that. And I think I'm not very good at that. When someone says, oh, tell me all about you, I'm like, well, my team did this and my team, right? But I think that because nurses want to just help people, we have a hard time seeing the value that we put on that we actually add to the environment. And I mean, the biggest thing that I hear is great leaders are servant leaders. They serve others. They are there for the other people, which is exactly why nurses are leaders, because we're there for other people. And I think I'm so glad that we're talking about dropping the just, because the best thing that we can ever hear is that our opinion matters, and that people are looking to us to say, hey, you were at the bedside for 12 hours. What do you think? How is this patient doing? So I think that dropping the just is very important. And how do we do that? We just have to own it. We have to say, no, we are valuable. I can do this. I am this person, and just changing our mindset and really seeing the value that we bring. So that's what I think.
Great.
About that.
So Kelly, lots of the nurses I've been talking to, I've come to learn that many nurses have a specific, whether it's a social justice cause or a healthcare issue or platform, something that's really near and dear to their heart. So for example, women's health and perinatal care definitely has been mine, just because with my background with labor and delivery and women's health, but also equitable access to healthcare services in rural areas is definitely one of my platforms. Is there a specific cause that you would like to lend your voice to as an agent of change over the next portion of your career?
Yeah, I think it's changed. Like, it hasn't necessarily changed over time. Like, my specialty area obviously is, like, I love critical care, and I'm always exploring new areas. I think my agent of change, or my area, or my platform, I guess if you want to call it that, I would love, and my goal in life is to positively impact the leaders of healthcare. And that's all levels. It's helping them see how leadership is so important in our environment, that building each other, building yourself, but ultimately building people matters, and that's building all of our resources and everyone in the healthcare environment. So I think that that comes down to me just saying that building people is my platform, because people matter, and that's, the people we serve, patients, are very important, but it's the people caring for the patients, everyone from doctors, nurses, healthcare aides, everybody, OTs, PTs, social work, everybody matters, because we all are there for a reason. We're there for the patient. We all have a common goal to help those people, but we need to build the people in our organizations. And so I would love to see more of that. I would love to see more development of the people that are taking care of our patients. Great. So that was my platform.
Awesome. So Kelly, what suggestions do you have for a nurse looking to get involved in policy or advocacy work? Because there's been a huge movement and kind of trend of nurses starting to use their voice. We're seeing the need for that more and more as we get threatened with budget cuts, and, just different things, as well as public health policy becoming more of a focus in the news. So do you have any suggestions for nurses looking to get involved in policy advocacy work?
I think that, I would say go for it. The biggest thing, I think the most important thing is to understand and do some research about whatever area that you're looking to get involved in. Because, it's very important, like our opinion matters, right? So I think that whatever area you are going into, make sure you do your research, find out the best trends, the biggest trends, what's happening, and making sure that that you're using your voice effectively. And I think that we always have to keep in mind and remember our integrity, because personally and professionally, right? Because sometimes we don't want to get involved in something that's gonna put a crack in our own foundation, right? So know what you believe in, find your values, understand them morally, ethically, for yourself, for personally and professionally. Know your integrity, do your research, and go for it. I think it's important that we advocate for, better health for all, or whatever that piece of that information or that piece of advocacy work you're looking into. But get involved. I think it's very important, because you not only do you lend your nursing voice and your leadership as a nurse voice, but you also learn a lot. I think I've learned a lot by being involved in different committees and the way things are organized, nursing and non-nursing. So I think you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about how things are run, and it helps you understand decisions more. So I would definitely say go for it. Just do your research and keep your integrity, and always be mindful that somebody's always looking at you as their influence. So just always be mindful of positively influencing others while you're doing it.
Awesome. So we know that with the Year of the Nurse and the Midwife, we're having lots of celebrations, and we're really trying to showcase not only the value that nurses bring to patients in our healthcare organizations, but also society as a whole. As a leader in the nursing profession, Kelly, what are some things that you see happening today that make you really proud to be a nurse, and some things that you think are really important that we should be celebrating?
I think that nurses are resilient. I think that is something that, moving from even urban, I guess the big tertiary centers, to rurally, nurses are resilient. There's so much stuff happening, changes that are happening in our healthcare environment, not only like locally, but globally. And nurses are resilient. We're out there, they're doing it. Patients are being taken care of. They're innovative. I'm so proud to be a nurse, because as a nurse, people look to you for innovation. People look to you like, hey, you have an idea for this? We're creative. We can, we're so resourceful, like I said. And I think we always have to remember that, like, we get the work done, we care for the patients, and at the end of the day, patients are cared for because we're resilient. So that's one thing that I'm very proud of, and I'm proud of the nurses that I see out there. I'm proud of my colleagues. I'm proud to be a part of the profession because of the resiliency. I mean, I think about when I got into nursing, and then I think about like World War II. I don't know why, but like looking at nurses that went overseas that were caring for these soldiers, and just like, I'm so proud, because they were in war zones and they were doing these things because they cared for people. They wanted people to be healed, and they had this servant's heart to heal people. And even to this day, you see that through all of the adversity, through all of different changes, through workload, high acuity, through everything, nurses are there, and they're at the bedside. And no matter what's happening outside, patients at the bedside can be rest assured that when they see a nurse, they're like, there's my nurse, there's someone that's going to care for me today. And so that's why I'm proud to be a nurse, and that's what I see that's happening today, that we're still resilient, just like those nurses that were going overseas. So
awesome. As a leader in the nursing profession, Kelly, what change do you hope to impact? What would you like your nursing legacy to be? And I know you have many years of your career left, so this is a futuristic question of, when you're at the end looking back, what do you hope that legacy is?
Well, it's hard because, legacy, I mean, like you said, I have so many years left, but I think the big thing for me for my life, like nursing and just in life general, is I want to say at the end of my life, the end of my career, that when someone had a conversation with me, or if I was helping them with something, that whatever encounter they had, that they left feeling better than they did when they came into the conversation. So I want to be able to just leave a mark, just leave an imprint on them so that they can imprint somebody else. And I would love to, I know I'll never necessarily be able to measure that ever, but I just want to lead a life of significance. I everything I do, and I always have to go back to my why, even in those times of like just frustration, things aren't moving fast enough. I just want to leave this world saying that I left someone feeling better than they did, and they were able to then, that ripple effect happened, that I mentored a nurse, and then they went on to mentor the new nurse who mentored the new nurse, or like to keep going. And so I just want to empower people to do that. I want to inspire them to find themselves, to truly find their calling, and to give people hope that they can find their purpose, and that they can find their calling, and that they're empowered to go out and live it, and to love it. And at the end of the day, like I've said before, like I just feel like if I could just, whoever I encounter, just go, hey, you know what? Everyone matters, and we need to build our people because people matter. And so if I could leave that legacy just wherever I go, like just don't forget to build your colleague, don't forget to build people, because that's what's going to keep it going, keep it going for a lifetime, for a legacy of people, and onward. So that's what I hope to live out in my life, is a life of significance, and that people can at the end of the day say that they felt better when they had an encounter with me than when they left. So when they started the conversation.
I love that, and I think you're definitely already on your way. So just keep going with that. So Kelly, as we wrap up today, I would love for you to provide the listeners with 3 tangible takeaways or pieces of advice.
Okay, well, I'll do my best. I have like 3.5. Is that okay?
Of course. I like rule breakers.
Rule breaker, sorry.
Yeah.
The first and most important thing is to keep your integrity. Your integrity is the foundation of who you are as a person. That's your moral and your ethical principles. So whether personally and professionally, keep your integrity, because at the end of the day, that's what you're walking away with, and there's no job worth losing your integrity over. So whatever role you're in, just keep your integrity. Always remember that. The second one is to be brave and to be courageous. And I love this quote, is be fearless in the pursuit of what sets your soul on fire. We all have a calling. We all have that the desire of our heart, and follow it. That could be a specialty in nursing, that could be people that you encounter, but just follow it, and really just be brave and be courageous to have those dialogues, and to seek out your passions, and keep growing. So number 3 is to keep growing. Leaders have a growth mindset. You just get involved, take the course, listen to the podcast, find those journal articles, find a mentor, find a coach, find someone that's going to help you navigate your journey. Just keep growing, never stop learning. John Maxwell said at Live to Lead last year that your degree should only be about 5 years, because at the 5-year mark, you should be growing. You should be way past what you learned in your degree, or your wherever you are. You should be in your growth mindset. Keep growing, keep learning. And then with that, always remember that in order to take care of others, you have to take care of yourself first. And I think you and I, Amy, have shared similar stories about the whole oxygen from the airplane, is that you have to put the oxygen on yourself first. I love that analogy because it's so true. If we don't get filled up and we give, and us as nurses, we work 12, sometimes 16-hour shifts, we have to be able to fill our cups up. We have to be able to put our own oxygen on and find that source of oxygen, so that you can care for others and continue to care for others. And the last one is, just like Mahatma Gandhi said, like, be the change you want to see in the world. you can only change yourself. You have to change yourself first. You have to lead yourself first to be able to change to change the world and to lead others. So I love that is what Mahatma Gandhi said is that be the change you want to see in the world. So I guess that's like 4, 6, but those are my ones that I thought of at the end there.
I love it. Those are fantastic. And Kelly, I just want to thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your wisdom and insights. We'll make sure that people can connect with you. You will make sure your social media stuff, all that is linked in the show notes so that they can connect with you. And just to wrap up, would you mind telling us a story from your nursing career that had an impact on you?
Sure, yeah. There's lots, but the one that really stood out to me, because my wish for nursing is to find their voice, is I remember my first time when I was on my own in ICU, and all the docs and the respiratory, everybody came around and we were doing rounds. And so the first thing they ask the nurse to give their head to toe report in the ICU that I worked in. So I did I did my head to toe, and I said, I think this is what's going on with my patient. And the doctor was like, Kate, yep, let's do that. What do you think we need? And I said what I thought we needed. I think we needed this, we needed that, and an order for this. And they said, that's exactly what I was thinking. And I thought, holy smokes. They listened to me. They heard I'm not dumb. Like, I know what I'm doing. And so I think that empowerment, and just to hear that I was a valuable member of the team, was an amazing experience. And so that was one of my stories that have stuck with me. And I've always just carried those types of things with me, because we do know what we're doing. We do see the patients, and we do have a voice. So it's just really cool when you get validated in what you are seeing. So yeah, that was one of the stories that.
Thank you for sharing that. And again, thank you so much for being here, Kelly. And we'll make sure your contact information is all linked in the show notes, like I mentioned, so that people can connect with you and ask you more questions. We'll make sure that all the resources that Kelly listed and talked about are also linked in the show notes, because I know that people are going to want to get those as well. So just thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for listening, everybody.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you loved the advice shared on this episode, we would be so grateful if you would let us know. Please head over to Apple Podcasts, formerly known as iTunes, and subscribe to our show, and then rate us and leave your review. We would be so grateful if you would take the time to subscribe, rate, and review. While you're on our website, NurseLeaders.ca/connect, all of our social media handles are there, and we would love to get to know you on social media as well. Thank you again for listening today, and remember, nurses, we have the power to change the world. Let's start today.